go back to our blue and our 4mm hook. So you want to make a magic ring. You want to put 4 single crochets into that ring. Pull tight. You're going to put 2 single crochets in those 4 holes. You don't really need a stitch marker, just count to 8. 2 in each hole. So your next go around is going to be 1 single crochet, just stitch marker at some point. Sorry, I'm using blue on blue. 1 single crochet in this stitch, 2 single crochets in this stitch, and then repeat. 1 single crochet, 2 single crochets. So when you come back around to your mark, you should have 12 stitches. So go into your next stitch, do a slip stitch, and fasten off with a sewing tail. This guy you can pull tight, tie a knot. You are going to see the inside of the ear. So if you wanted to just, actually let's just do that. You're going to see the inside of this ear. So Papa Smurf, I just tied a knot, and I mean it's not really noticeable. But just because, let's just weave this guy in. So once you've got that done, you're going to turn this right side in, and you're going to sew the bottom so you close up the bottom of the ear, just like that. So, I say sew a lot, I know. When you sew this on, you're going to have to decide where you want it, and then you're just going to have to disregard the fact that there's hair there. It just makes it more real. Apparently we're disregarding the nose too. I mean, other than getting it stuck in your stitches. Just kind of go around the hair. Just make sure you've got it where you want it. I know it's hard to show you what I'm doing, but I'm trying to lay it flat as opposed to just sewing that one end in. I just want it laid flat like that. That's my preference. Doesn't have to be your preference. And then I'm just going to come back up through the bottom of the ear. I can't seem to, there we go. Couldn't seem to get into it at all. So make sure that's snugly down, and then you can just weave in and out just to secure it. Or you can do what I do. Tie a knot. Pull that knot down as much as you can. Cut off a tidge. And then just stick this right down into the stuffing. Make sure it's right in there. So that's ear number 1. There. Ears aren't very straight. I think this one could have went up more. I really hope you guys are better sewers than I am. So we can move on now, I think, to arms. And then we'll get the dress done. But she needs arms now that her head's done. There's some stuffing around. She's all distorted. So the arms are pretty easy. You're going to use your 4mm hook. Make a magic ring. You're going to put 6 single crochets into the magic ring. Pull. You put 2 single crochets in each stitch around, so just count to 12. It's 12. And again, let's secure this before we move on. So you can weave it in, or you can tie a knot, cut it off. So you're going to do 1 single crochet and an increase. One single crochet, and your increase is 2 in this next hole, and repeat 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet all the way around, and at the end you should have a total of 18 stitches. Oh, I'm struggling to get into this stitch for some reason. Not sure why. There we go. So for the next 2 rows, you're just going to do 1 single crochet around, so you can use your stitch marker. You can just count to 36. So you ever get lost with your marker? Right here, this is your initial magic ring with 6 single crochets. Right here is where you started your spiral of 2 in each hole. Right there should line up with your marker. So if you ever do lose your way, just look for the beginning of your spiral. So that's my 2 rows of single crochets. So your next row is going to be a decrease. Decrease is going to be aggressive, so 1 single crochet and a decrease. 1 single crochet and a decrease. So for the next 16 rows, you're going to do 1 single crochet in each stitch around. So if you have a row counter, comes in handy. So I will put my pause screen up, and I will, I should have 12 stitches, by the way, around. I will put my pause screen up, and then I will put the pattern for the arm, so you can make your second arm. And then I'll meet you back here, and we can sew it on, and then build the dress, make a tail, and we are finished. So see you back on the other side. Alright, so I got both my arms done. Got to put a little bit more stuffing in this guy. Let's stuff it till about they're the same size, because you can make one fatter than the other. This one's fatter than this one, but not a huge big deal. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your top and all the stuffing, and you're going to whip stitch it shut. So a whip stitch is generally back loop to back loop, but we're just going to go through all 4 pieces of yarn because it doesn't have to be super pretty. It's just being sewn shut so it's easier to sew to the body. So once you have your arm sewn shut, this is where you get to determine where you want your arm. So I designed it to be attached at the neck. That's just below the neck on this guy. So I'm quite sure it's going to move as I'm sewing it, because it always does. But I mean, you have to decide where you want your arm. And then you can just stick something in place to help you hold it while you sew it. Again, you probably have your own way of sewing stuff on. I have done a number of videos where I show you all kinds of different ways. So I don't just stick to one. It all depends on the piece I'm working on. So they're not always the same. I do switch them up as far as how I sew stuff on. So I'm just going to weave this in and out, back and forth, in case something decides to wiggle loose. Then I'm going to jam that down into the stuffing, never to be seen again. That's arm number 1. It's probably not my best sewing job. I'll try to make this one better. So, now we need to make her some clothing. So this is the dress I did before. We can put back on her, so that you get an idea. The button, her little tail back here, we still got to do the tail. I keep forgetting about that tail. So that's the dress we're going to do. So you need to get your white all done with the blue. We're just going to start with a slip knot. And you're going to chain 33. You are going to double crochet 3, starting in the first stitch you can get into. You're going to chain 8. You're going to skip 8. And into the 9th hole, you're going to attempt to do a double crochet. Now you're going to double crochet 8. So you should have 9 altogether in here, because we're counting the double crochet we put after we did our chain. So we're going to chain 8 again. We're making the armholes. We're going to skip 8 and into the 9th hole we're going to attempt to put another double crochet, if we can stop everything from spinning. And then you can double crochet 3. That brings you right to the end. Tighten your slip knot here. So that's your armholes for the dress. That's the part we just made. So you're going to chain 1, and we're just going to double crochet across this entire thing. You're just going to put 8 into the big space. You don't have to try to get into the chains. You don't have to worry about this hole. That'll take care of it. So I'll put 3 here. Put 8 into the big space. Put 8 in this big space. And then 3 to end it. Well, not end it, but end this row. So this one's going to be turned over a bit. Just have to do your best to try to get into it. So that's row number 2 of our dress. Chain 1. This is going to be an increase row, which means you're going to do 2 double crochets in the first stitch, 2 double crochets in the last stitch, and then just single all the way. So if you chain 2 here, then just put 1 double crochet in there, because that chain 2 will act as a double crochet. So if that makes your life easier. Not that it's difficult what I was asking, but you can do it that way. Oh, I forgot. There has to be 2 done in this hole. Forgot I was increasing. So just chain 1, because this next row is not an increase row, it's just straight up double crochet. So chain 2, this is a increase row. So just put 1 in here, because that chain 2 will count as a stitch. So I gotta put 2 on the end here for my increase. I'm gonna chain 1. So now I'm going to put 2 double crochets in each stitch, not counting this stitch there. I'm going to go right into here. So 2 double crochets in each stitch. Now we're slamming home the increase. There, so far that's what we got. Now we're going to chain 2. We're going to skip 2. We're going to put a double crochet. Actually, we'll put 2 double crochets in this space. We're going to chain 2. We're going to skip 2. We're going to put 2 double crochets in this space. We're going to repeat that all the way down. Chain 2. Skip 2. So skip 2, you're going to go right into the very last stitch and put 2 double crochets. So last but not least, we're going to put a scalloped edge. Turn your work. So in each big space, you're going to put 3 double crochets and then 1 single crochet in the space in between. Chain 1 and then 3 double crochets into this big space. And then come down here and put 1 single crochet. and then 3 double crochets in this big space. Come down here, find a stitch, doesn't matter which stitch, just find one. Put a single crochet, and you're just going to repeat that all the way across. So it's going to give you the scalloped edge, as you can tell. And this finishes the dress off, so this is the last thing we're going to do. So there's nothing to slip a stitch into, so we're basically just going to fasten off. But you're going to fasten off with a bit to sew the back of the dress up. So for starters, let's hide this somewhere. So I just did a simple whip stitch. And I only sewed up a little bit because you gotta try to get it on the doll. So we're only sewing. I guess I didn't need this much thread. So figure out which end you want your side to be showing. Wow, I got a lot of yarn here. Fold it in half. And then you're simply just going to go through whatever stitches you can. Don't take sewing lessons off of me. Oh God, I'm not even on camera. I suck at sewing. I do the best that I can, but I mean, really, to take lessons off of me? Probably not a good idea. So you can take suggestions, but don't be overly serious about learning from me. I'm just doing it just in, I mean, you can put buttons all the way down if you wanted to, but so that's about as far as I think I'm going to go. Just up to the top of the 2 double crochet row that we did. So she does have a tail. So keep in mind, she does have a tail that we haven't yet done. So, dog and cat hair on my little pretty dress already. Now we just gotta find a button. You can do any button you want. My problem with buttons is I got a lot of buttons, obviously, but I don't have a lot of needles that go through the head of the button Geez, I don't have a lot of needles in here, period. There's one. That I can even... I mean, this will go through the button, but I don't know if I can thread it. That's my only problem. You'll do a red one. So always got to check. Yeah, see, that won't go through the button. I always got to check to see what needle's going to go through the button before I pick a button. That's not going to go through the button. This definitely won't go through the button. So ultimately I'm going to have to try to thread this tiny little hole. Nope. Alright. So when you're struggling, you pull your yarn apart, because I don't know what else to do. So this button should go through one of these spaces. Even if you gotta force it, it'll go through one of these spaces. There was no need to make a buttonhole, really. So I have 4 holes, so I'm gonna have to go through all 4 holes. Let me start from the bottom up. So we're just tying this in the back, so you don't have to be all fancy. I'm just gonna tie this in a very tight double knot. Sometimes that's the problem with splitting your yarn, is hoping it doesn't break when you're tying it in a double knot. There. So, let's put my buttons away. Let's try this dress on. Oh, and while I was waiting for my batteries to charge, I filled her hair all in. So there we go. So her cute little dress is now done. So the only thing left to do is make a tail. And then we're all finished. So get your blue. I got a little bit of blue left. Let me put my needles and stuff away. So the tail's pretty quick. You're gonna make a magic ring. You're gonna put 6 single crochets. You're gonna do 1 single crochet in each stitch around for 3 rows. So you can just count to 18. You don't need a stitch marker. Before we go any further, because we're gonna have not such an easy time trying to... Let's tie this in a knot. So we're gonna have to turn this bad boy inside out, or right side in. And we don't want this guy to be in the way. Oh my gosh, I need some sharper scissors. So that's one. Let's try to flip it right now before we get carried away. I'm going to do our other 2 rows right side in. So 2 more rows. And that is it. So you can go into your next stitch, you can do a slip stitch, you can fasten off with a sewing tail. That's your little nubby tail. Go into the next stitch, you pull this through. You don't have to do that, but So let's expose her buttocks. So there's really only one spot for it. So I'm just going to do invisible stitches because I find it holds better. As awkward as it might seem, it's only awkward because I'm on camera. It's a lot easier to do. I'm going to dump that whole thing if I don't move it. It's a lot easier to do when I can hold it up against me. It's just harder to do on camera. But it holds it better. I think it holds it tighter. You don't have to put any stuffing in this because I don't think that's really worth the struggle. It is just a tail after all. Until I was designing a Smurf, I don't even think I knew it had a tail, honestly. Take that pin out, it's doing nothing anyway. So I'm going to go over invisible stitches again in case you're unaware. If you come in as close as you can to this thing, to the tail, and you come up just into a stitch like that, it will suck your yarn underneath the thing that you're sewing, so you won't see the stitch from the outside. That's what makes it invisible stitches. And I think it gives such a more solid hold than other stitches that I've done, that I still do. I will use different stitches, but I think that gives a way better hold, is the invisible ones. So when you're done and you're satisfied, you can just go in. You're not going to be able to weave unless you can, unless you have enough blue to come down and reach the blue in her leg. We can just tie a knot. This is my little trick. I don't know if anyone else uses it or not. Tie a knot. And then I like to just take my scissors and I shove that knot down into the stuffing. Now you don't have to shove this much yarn, but shove some yarn with it. Shove it down into the stuffing. The knot should get lodged in the stuffing and therefore not come out. So there's the little nubby tail. It really Pull the dress down a bit. So, if you pull the dress down to where it should be, I didn't sew the dress up far enough to impede the tail, so I just usually shove the tail through there. But anyway, let me lift my camera up. There you have it. Your Papa Smurf, your Smurfette. So now we've got the two. I think the mouth on this one is better. Try to hold my camera up. I think the mouth on this one is better. My nose is crooked though. My nose is crooked on that one too. So, I don't think it really looks like her, but it's as close as I could get. Thanks for joining me, guys. I'll see you in the next video.